This is dedicated to the homies that was down since day one. Welcome to Drop D.
Hey, what is up? Welcome in, guys. Welcome into Quick Hits, a JFK assassination research, news, and notes podcast. This is episode number 30. My name is Doug Campbell. I am but 50% of your hosts. Along with me, as always, my co-host, Bob Clark. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Doug. It's a pleasure to be here with you again on this lovely February morning.
A lovely February morning, yes, sir. Good to see you, Bob. Good to talk to you, buddy. How have you been? Misidentified lately, any?
A few times, but it's to be expected.
Well, with I was about to say something clever about with a certain amount of notoriety comes, but no, notoriety that doesn't come with getting your name, being misidentified. That doesn't come with that territory at all, buddy.
I mean, it's a mere technicality, Doug. It's what we in the business call close enough, apparently.
Close enough for government work, which is ironic when you come to think about it. Yeah. So, hey, we have got a full slate, my friend, of JFK assassination research-related news and notes to pass along to our dear listeners. Would you like to kick us off, dude? Oh, hey.
Yes.
And we also need to remind everybody that this show is also brought to you in no way, shape, form, or fashion, in no part at all, by Coke Zero. So, there you go.
That's right. And Dunkin' Donuts.
No, not brought to you at all by Dunkin' Donuts or Coke Zero in any way, shape. They will not be affiliated with us. They said, Pond Scum, you guys are lower than that. We don't want to be affiliated with you in any form. And quite frankly, there's a lot of that going around. But I digress. Rob, we got a fresh topic.
We do.
All right.
Let's start it off a little bit cray-cray, shall we? I came across a document, Doug, concerning a notebook belonging to Lee Harvey Oswald, identified in Dallas police evidence as item number 108.
Item number 108. What
Yes.
is this item that
Well,
item number 108?
I'm not sure if it's his address book or if it's something else. It doesn't sound like his address book, but on page 5 of a notebook belonging to Lee Harvey Oswald, which was obtained by the Dallas police in a search of the residence of Mrs. Ruth Payne at 2515 West 5th Street of Irving, Texas, on November the 23rd, 1963, there appears the following telephone numbers. CR 53271, ED 27241, and 6 or 7 other ones. I won't bore you with the details of these phone numbers that just don't work anymore. But it goes on to say it should be noted that ED, which is the prefix for some of these phone numbers, is possibly an Edison exchange in Fort Worth, Texas. And CR, another prefix, is possibly a Crestview exchange in Arlington, Texas.
Okay.
Okay?
I'm with you.
So duly note that.
Arlington, I'm going to write it down. You said Fort Worth and Arlington?
Yes. So on February the 13th, 1964, the FBI got their hands on some telephone records of Southwestern Bell Telephone Company. And they reflect the following listings for the following telephone numbers found in the Oswald notebook.
Okay.
Now the first one, for the Crestview exchange, CR 53271, happens to be the city offices of Arlington, Texas, including the Arlington Police Department. Okay?
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now the next number, ED 27241, rings through to the City of Fort Worth switchboard, which includes the Fort Worth Police Department.
Yep.
Okay. ED 27307 rings through to the Federal Court Clerk's Office, the U.S. Courthouse in Fort Worth, Texas. Okay.
So we've got
5
a municipal switchboard, which goes to all the which can theoretically go to the sewer department, the water department, the police department, and we've got a courthouse. Right. Two police departments and a courthouse scattered around Dallas.
Yes, Fort Worth. Yes, and Arlington. Yes, and which is around Dallas. Yes. The next one is ED 54211, which is a U.S. government switchboard operated in Fort Worth, Texas. Okay. The next one, ED 64211, has not been a working number since November the 21st, 1963. Prior to that time,
really?
It was...
Okay,
Prior to that time, it was an unlisted number for the Winfield Garage at 206 East 8th Street, Fort Worth, Texas.
Winfield Garage. Okay.
But it says it was changed because this number frequently got confused with a U.S. government switchboard number ED 54211.
Okay, how many government switchboards or municipality general switchboards does this make? 3?
Well, he had the number, which was ED 5.
Right.
4211 for the U.S. government switchboard in his notebook. And then under that, he had ED 6 4211, which is his Winfield Garage.
But he also had the number for the general switchboard for the municipality of Fort Worth, Texas, right?
Yes.
Which theoretically could reach law enforcement.
Correct.
Or who knows? Okay, so that's 3, right?
Yes, but the U.S. government switchboard would have gotten you, for instance, the local FBI office or the local CIA office or the local IRS office or things like that.
Yeah, but it's very interesting that that's 3 different switchboards of that nature. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and then we have, pardon me, ED 69241, which rings through to the City County Health Center at 1800 University Drive in Fort Worth, Texas. Okay. And then ED 69551 rings through to the Tarrant County Criminal Courts Building, which includes the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office in Fort Worth, Texas. Okay.
All right.
The above information is available upon the issuance of a subpoena duces tecum, which subpoena should be directed to Mr. James Garrett, supervisor of the Southwestern Bell Telephone Company, Fort Worth, Texas. So basically, the FBI had to subpoena Southwestern Bell to get all of these listings.
Right.
So I just thought that was interesting that a page in Lee Harvey Oswald's notebook rings through to all these government and local municipalities, including courts and sheriffs and police. So what the hell was this guy up to?
Well, that's very interesting because that when you're reading them off, I'm thinking, well, who's he trying to reach? Right? Who's he trying to reach by reaching? You know, when he calls the courthouse or the general.
Or is he offering information?
Well, he could be, yeah. But who's he trying to reach?
Or is he trying to get information?
Detectives, FBI agents, you know?
Yeah, it's very hard to say. I don't know.
But you know, this guy, you know, you hear about that, was it the Dodd Committee or the Dodd Commission, you know, that were investigating. It was a congressional committee investigating gun running and firearm sales during that time. You hear rumblings that Oswald perhaps may have been some kind of informant for them. Don't ask me to tell you exactly where I've read it, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So many different ways he could have been and was providing. You know, he was an informant. I don't think any of us Doubt that. Do you? That probably an FBI informant?
No, I mean,
you don't think so?
Personally, well, no, I do.
Yeah.
I think he was definitely talking to Debris in New Orleans for sure. But in Texas, it's hard to say what he was accused of running around doing. Like going to see McCown and Odio and all these other crazy people around Dallas, and it's
provoking.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, just like he was in New Orleans with the FPCC thing and the flyers. He seems to have been an agent provocateur kind of thing.
Right.
He's trying to provoke. He's a hangout bait. And seems to be with the, like you say, with the McCowan thing and with other things. Didn't Odio allegedly see him speaking to some anti-Castro Cubans at one point?
I don't know about that.
Or saw him at a meeting or something, or can't remember. Can't remember the details now, but yeah. So that's the question that information raised in my mind. Like, who's he trying to get a hold of?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, he was hanging around Michael Payne. I think they went to a couple of rallies there, for various things. So who knows what he was up to? But I just thought it was interesting because, unless a cop or an FBI agent or somebody like that gives you their direct home number, which did come up in New Orleans with Debris and people of his ilk. Some of these guys would have these actual FBI agents' home phone numbers, in order to get in touch with them without having to go through a switchboard and without having to, arise suspicion from other people who maybe they didn't want knowing that they were running certain individuals. But that this stuff was in Oswald's notebook is a little eye-opening for sure.
Well, it raises even more good questions.
Yeah. All right, so there's that one, and then I came across this other document here real quick, Doug, also from November 23rd, 1963. It's something I wasn't aware of, despite, well, maybe I heard it along the way, but it didn't register until I read this document. And this is a internal FBI document to Clyde Tolson from Alan Belmont.
Mr. Tolson. Mr.
Yes.
Hoover's favorite.
Mrs. Hoover, yes.
Allegedly. Or maybe, no, wasn't Hoover Mrs. Tolson? Isn't that how that worked? Allegedly.
Yeah, probably
Allegedly.
So. Maybe they switched. Who knows?
That was creepy
so the
as
document
hell.
goes on. The document goes on to say, I talked to Special Agent in Charge Shanklin at 9:35 a.m. on November 23rd, 63, and we discussed the development where our Chicago office has found that a rifle with the same serial number as the rifle found in the building in Dallas was mailed by Klein's Sporting Goods Company, Chicago, Illinois, on March the 20th, 1963, to an A. Heidel, Post Office Box 2915, Dallas, Texas. Shanklin said agents have checked with the post office and that this is a post office box in the name of Oswald's mother, Marguerite.
Okay.
And traceable to Oswald. Have you ever heard that before?
I don't think so. Have you? That's
what jumped out at me. No,
No.
I have not.
Huh.
'Cause how would they connect A. Heidel to Marguerite Oswald?
If I'd run, I would. The first place I would check is maybe the John Armstrong Archives over at the Baylor University, the Pogue Library Digital, or his book. I would think that if it's been if there's something to that, that would be the first place I would look for more info. But I don't know. I've never heard that.
Yeah. Me either. So yeah, that jumped off the page at me for sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So that's all for that one, Doug, for the first one. What do you got, buddy?
Well, I'll tell you this. First, I got to give a big thanks to our friend Ted Rubenstein for this next segment. He sent this to me. And I did not know it. This is an interesting story. It's just I don't think it has any bearing at all directly on the assassination, but it's certainly an interesting story, Rob. Dude, if I were to ask you to name, I'll tell you what, give me 5 names right off the top of your head of first-generation researchers, first-generation Warren Report critics. Who comes to mind?
Mark Lane, of course.
Yeah.
Josiah Thompson. Sylvia Marr. Who was the guy up in Philadelphia, the lawyer? Damn, he just passed away not too long ago, too.
I know who you're talking about. I'm drawing a blank. Salandria.
Yeah. Yes, Vince Salandria.
Yep.
Yes. And Harold Weisberg. There's 5.
Yep. Well, dude, what if I told you that one of the individuals that you mentioned had a cousin who was an associate of the Philadelphia mob, La Cosa Nostra?
I would probably believe it.
Not only an associate, dude, not a made guy, but an associate. Not only that, but the guy he was with was none other than longtime Philadelphia boss of bosses, Angelo Bruno. In fact, he was a close friend of his. And not only that, but that this cousin of a first-generation researcher who was an associate of the Philly mob was actually captured on FBI listening devices in February of 1962 saying that President John Kennedy should be killed. What would you say?
I would say that's pretty fantastic, but I would also say not surprising given the whole deal with the Irishman and that the book and the movie following the mob out of Philadelphia, and allegedly doing away with Hoffa and being slightly involved in the JFK assassination. So, pray tell more, Doug. I need more info.
Well, my good man, his name was Willie Weisberg, cousin of Harold Weisberg. Believe it or not. And
Willie
guys,
Weisberg.
Willie Weisberg. Dude was a
Sounds
straight
like a tough motherfucker.
Dude was a straight gangster. I ain't even kidding. Man. Right out of a Scorsese flick. And you know what? I don't bring this to the attention of the audience to cast any kind of aspersions on Harold Weisberg, okay? It's just it's a historical curiosity and a fascinating little story. I have admiration, the utmost, for Harold Weisberg and his legacy and his document archive and his work. So we're not trying to go conspiratorial here with this or anything at all. I want to make that clear to everybody, Rob. It's just
everybody has a black sheep in the family. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you can't
man.
control other people, so.
And this dude was that. He was the black sheep. There's a letter I'm going to read that Harold Weisberg wrote about his cousin here in a minute. But for anybody who studies this kind of stuff, dude, it's pretty fascinating. Willie Weisberg was apparently he was an extremely well-connected guy. Angelo Bruno was the Don of Philly and South Jersey by this time. And you can tell by the whole tone of these conversations that Willie Weisberg and Angelo Bruno were very good friends. And I want to read a little bit of the transcript for you of this one. It's a transcript of bugs, not in the phones, but like listening devices and lamps and shit. In Angelo Bruno's the boss of bosses in Philly and North Jersey, in his like lair, where he met with everybody, they had listening devices. Now, believe it or not, dude, this transcript is still very, very redacted. Still, to this day, it's very redacted. There are a crap ton of black rectangles. Tons, dude. But, like I say, listening devices. This is dated. I want to share this with you, Rob. Thursday, February 8th, 1962. And apparently Willie Weisberg had been picked up and questioned by no less than the police commissioner himself about the boss Angelo Bruno. And he's going back to Angelo Bruno to report back everything, what was said and the questions and he was asked and all this stuff. I want to read a little bit. It says right here, 5:07 p.m., Willie Weisberg positively identified, entered the office and went into the back room with Angelo Bruno. Hurriedly said something about the commissioner. They asked what I know about, and this is Willie Weisberg talking. I mean, this dude's a straight gangster. They asked what I know about Angelo Bruno. How do you know? Look, the Internal Revenue knows. Edgar Hoover knows. Treasury knows. I said, look, whatever he's doing is his own business. Don't say, look, you locked me up. You followed me with walkie-talkies. He says, you're talking about the wrong tree. You're barking up the wrong tree. This business with Angelo Bruno. I'm not going to tell you about your city, but you have no organized crime here. That's what Willie Weisberg is telling Bruno that he told the police commissioner. I mean, dude is fired up. He's getting really heated. He says, so he tells Bruno, so they are picking on me. I'm the only one. Who else they going to pick on? That's how I said it. I'm the only Jew. He said, well, I wouldn't be that abrupt, but I would say I am that abrupt. To me, it don't make no difference. I'm a Jew, pal. That's the only thing. I'm the only Jew, so you're picking on me. What you want from Angelo Bruno, I don't know. And then the commissioner asks him about Angelo Bruno's business, like illegal business. And he says, he asked me about me and you. I said, me and him. And again, Commissioner, I wish I was in it with him. I ain't. But he goes on and on about how they're checking on me. I know what they're doing to me. I can't make a fucking nickel. The fellow said, don't you be cursing in here. I said, well, I'm a little excited. Anything else on your mind, Commissioner? Can I go? And anyway, he's ranting and raving. And Angelo Bruno's trying to calm him down. And then later on, they get to this point. Willie Weisberg said, the cops, they went to my tailor. They went to my bootlegger. They went to verify everything. They're going to try to break me. Good luck to them. And the boss, Angelo Bruno, says, good luck to them. Fuck them. And Willie Weisberg says, yeah, fuck them. That's what I mean. But what can I do about it? Bruno says, I wouldn't wake them up. Just say, good luck to them. And then Willie Weisberg says, see what Kennedy done? With Kennedy, a guy should take a knife, like one of them other guys, and stab and kill that, and it says B word obscene, in parentheses, where he is right now. Somebody should kill that redacted. I mean it. This is true. Honest to God. It's about time to go, but I tell you something. I hope I get a week's notice. I'll kill him. Right in the fucking White House. I'll kill him. Somebody get rid of this bastard. I don't know why they redacted some of the bad words and not some of the others. Can you believe that?
Yeah, that's awesome.
But check this out, man. Angelo Bruno is trying to calm him down. He says, so another guy will come, Willie. Willie said, what's that? And Bruno says, so another guy will come. And Willie Weisberg says, not like this one.
Right.
And Bruno says, look, Willie, once there was a king. Do you understand? And he found out that everybody was saying that he was a bad king. This is an old Italian story. So, you know what I need? Like Godfather music playing in the background of this.
Right.
This is an old Italian story, he says. So there was an old wise woman about 104 years old. So he figured, let me go talk to the old wise woman. She knows everything. So he went to the old wise woman. So he says to her here, I can just hear him. So he says to her here, I came here because I want your opinion. He says, do you think I'm a bad king? She says, no. I think you are a good king. He says, well, how come everybody says I'm bad? She says, because they're stupid. They don't know. He says, well, how come? Why do you say I'm a good king? She said, I knew your great-grandfather. He was a bad king. I knew your grandfather. He was worse. I knew your father. He was worse than them. You are worse than all of them. But your son, if you die, your son is going to be worse than you. So it's better to be with you. And then he laughs. He was no good. He's basically telling him, look, if somebody kills Kennedy, somebody worse is going to come.
Right.
Yeah.
More than likely, yeah.
Yeah. But, man, old Willie was fired up, dude. He was mad.
Sounds like it. Damn.
I want to read this. This is a letter. And like I say, there's no guilt by association here, because here you're going to say, this is where Mr. Weisberg does tell the story in a letter from his archives to a gentleman named Jim. It was written on March 1st of 1988.
Jim D?
I doubt it. Not in 1988. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little early for that guy. But again, now later on in this letter, he says he thinks that Willie was actually talking about Robert Kennedy and not John Kennedy. That was Harold Weisberg's opinion. But the letter reads in part, Dear Jim, the Willie Weisberg records are actually of the FBI's bugging of his apartment in Angelo Bruno's office, not wiretaps. He said, I'd be surprised if these few dates of buggings is a fair sample of what the FBI actually got. And I'd not be surprised much of the withholding is improper, but given the content, it does not seem likely that that the withheld material would add much. Willie's father was my father's cousin, Harold says. So we were not closely related, except that the entire family was very, very close, and there was no such thing then as a distant relation. Willie's father, Shimon or Simon, and mother Bobsy were always at my paternal grandfather's for Passover and other holidays. Simon had a furniture store in Frankfurt, in the northeast section of Philly, on a main street, which was elevated. And he says, the family story of what made Willie what he was is that the father was robbed regularly. So unlike the other children, all of whom were quite successful, Willie decided that working for the crooks had it turned around. The crooks are the ones who made out. I remember that from when I was very young. I don't know that I ever saw Willie. I have clear recollections of his parents, his father's older sister, and her unmarried daughter, and vague recollections of others in their part of the family. I believe Willie's parents came to this country before my father did, who preceded his father. Willie's older brother was quite successful in business. Willie was the only bad egg. It really shocked the rest of the family, Harold says. I am not aware of his ever having visited anyone in his family, save for perhaps his parents in his earliest days in crime. I'm not certain of this, and perhaps when they were dying. I have a faint and unclear recollection that when he did offer his parents money, they refused it. Nobody held him against his family, but everyone in the rest of the family seemed to regard him as living while dead, a tragedy. He was not mentioned very much. That's what Mr. Weisberg, which is sad, and I sympathize with Harold Weisberg there, but dude, Willie Weisberg was a straight gangster. You know it?
That's crazy.
Yeah. He was a straight gangster. He was all like, give me a knife. I'll go in the White House and stab him myself and shit. So, and Angelo Bruno was a big deal. He got, I read, getting ready for this, I think he got shot in the late 70s, early 80s. Shotgun blast to the back of the head while sitting in his car. He was known as the docile Don. He liked to work things out without violence. But the guys under him that whacked him apparently did so because he wouldn't allow any of them to deal narcotics. But he would let other gangs deal narcotics if they gave him a cut. But his guys weren't allowed to. And apparently that upset a lot of guys who wanted some of that narco money, and Bruno got popped. But he was a very, very, very powerful mafia don for a long time, and him and Willie Weisberg, cousin of Harold, were very tight.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I had not heard that before.
And again, disclaimer, we're not trying to cast any kind of aspersions through association or blood relation on Mr. Weisberg, nothing but the utmost respect for Mr. Weisberg. It's just, again, from a historical curiosity kind of perspective, tangentially connected to our thing, guys. See what I did there, Rob? Like La Cosa Nostra, our thing?
Yes,
yeah,
our thing.
There we go. It is a fascinating curiosity, and I wanted to pass that along to everyone. So there you go, Mr. Rob.
Nice.
You are up to bat, sir.
Yes. Now, the next document I'd like to talk about here comes from the HSCA. And Doug, you should be familiar with this. We don't talk about it much on this show, but Doug does talk about it a lot on the Dallas Action. So if this little nugget intrigues you, I would encourage you to definitely go back and binge the archives of the Dallas Action, especially when Larry Hancock is a guest.
Oh, fun. Can't wait to hear this.
So, Doug.
Yes, sir.
I got my hands on an internal HSCA memo from Belford Lawson to Ken Klein and Cliff Fenton, dated August 29th, 1977.
These are always interesting documents.
Yeah, regarding the Cuban connection and John Martino.
Okay.
So Belford Lawson describes his brief contacts with Fred Clausen, John Martino's longtime friend and business partner.
Right.
Martino died of cancer in 1975 after spending much of his adult life as a protagonist trying to blame the assassination on Castro. With only weeks to live, Martino admitted to both Clausen and Newsday reporter John Cummings that the Cuban exiles were actually behind the crime and had duped Oswald to believe he was working for communist agents. Okay?
Yes.
That's just a brief overview of this here memorandum, which I'm going to read to you right now. The source of information in this memorandum.
There was a lot of the pushing of that theory by people who were interconnected in one or two ways, like Frank Sturgis, and some of the Interpen affiliated certainly floated that same theory,
Oh, yeah. So the source is an anonymous informant now living in Fort Worth who telephoned several times from there. He identified himself only as Fred. Fred's source is John Martino, who died 2 years ago in 1975. Fred did not disclose the exact nature of his association with Martino, except to indicate that it was through the import-export business, Vanderlei Industries.
Yeah, the quote-unquote import-export business.
Yes.
Yeah, Martino was he was a security quote-unquote security consultant for mob-run casinos in Cuba prior to the Cuban Revolution. He was the guy that wired them for sound, and vision. So, yeah, connected guy, man. Connected guy.
Yep. It says Fred was extremely nervous about disclosing his identity, but was anxious to help to the point of frequently expressing regret that he could not remember more information. Fred called 4 or 5 times and spoke with me twice, but it was not possible to return his calls because he would only make contact through payphones. He wanted to know what he could do to assist in following up on his information, but since no active investigation was being undertaken at the time in early spring of 77, and since no schedule for investigation could be given to him, he stopped calling. Martino's career prior to the Bay of Pigs included working in Cuba for Meyer Lansky as an electronic surveillance agent. Martino was captured during the Bay of Pigs invasion and held in a Cuban prison for 2 years. Subsequently, he was released from prison, quote, in exchange for some spies from a South American country, end quote. After his release, he was closely associated with, quote, people from Guatemala, end quote, and worked for the CIA. Martino served as personal affairs secretary for Melodandro Maldonado, whatever the hell that is, while in Guatemala.
Yeah.
Subsequently, upon returning to the U.S., Martino worked for H.L. Hunt and other Texas oilmen by going on speaking tours to condemn Fidel Castro.
You know what? He wrote a book called "I Was Castro's Prisoner."
Yes,
and went on these speaking tours just like General Edwin Walker did. And who financed all that Walker stuff, right? Who was it?
Yep, and just like Carlos Bernier did.
Yeah, and Lauren Hall.
Yes.
And who financed all those things?
H.L. Hunt.
H.L. Hunt, that's right. Didn't he own the Texas School Book Depository?
No, that was D.H. Byrd.
Okay, that's D.H. Byrd. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Oh, man, there are those who will pounce upon that mistake.
That's all good.
Sorry, Bob.
Martino's
I apologize for that faux pas, Bob.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Martino's information about the assassination is that JFK was killed because he betrayed Cubans by giving the Free Havana speech at the Miami Stadium, withdrawing support from the Bay of Pigs invasion. RFK was killed for the same reason as the go-between who negotiated with the Cubans for JFK. LHO thought he was working for pro-Castro Cubans, but in fact he was working for anti-Castro Cubans. Oswald's murder of Tippit was not part of the plan. Oswald was acting in accordance with the plan when he went to the Texas Theater. But it is unknown to Oswald. It was planned that Oswald would be murdered at the theater. So basically, what this guy is saying is he was supposed to go to the Texas Theater to apparently meet someone, but he was supposed to be killed there, but Oswald did not know that. The assassins knew the motorcade.
I've always thought that he wasn't supposed to live through being taken into custody.
Right.
You know. Oswald fucked the whole deal up by managing to be taken alive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Good thing he was in public. You can't just murder somebody for the hell of it. But the assassins supposedly knew the motorcade route long before they came to Dallas. And Martino's wife knows specific information concerning the above areas. Living witnesses to whom Fred directed the committee. Mrs. John Martino, 305-531-3696 in Miami. Vincent Martino, son of John Martino. Jorge Maldonado, a vice president in the national government in Guatemala City. Guatemala. Fuck you. That's the new Liberty Lobby.
I'm taking notes now so I can pull these sound bites out.
Damn it. Close friend and confidant of John Martino.
Yes.
Alan Ross and Son, in charge of the First National Import and Export Miami, Florida. Martino's business activities included contact with this firm and with Caps and Sons in Magoon, Virginia. Persons in each place may have information that comes from Martino himself. The Virginia firm traded in bulletproof vests with Guatemala and lined up contacts in Guatemala for Paraguay. Fred said to use his name to establish contact with Mrs. Martino. I just thought that was interesting because, we've all heard about the John Martino accusations and, of course, the great work of Larry Hancock and Noel Twyman.
Oh, yeah.
Concerning the interview with Roy Hargraves and all that. We know Martino was in prison with Traficante, Lord Hall, all those guys down there. So,
and according to Lauren Hall,
information to think about.
According to Lauren Hall, he was meeting with Martino, Eddie Bayo, Eduardo Perez, and Santo Traficante and John Rosselli, along with Martino, the same 2 weeks of April that William Harvey went to Miami and met with Rosselli. And that is very interesting to me. And, for those that might not be aware, of course, John Martino's wife, who Rob mentioned there in that document, she later on admitted that he told her that morning on the November 22nd that they're going to kill him, Flo. They're going to kill him when he gets to Dallas. And his son Vincent, he actually kept him out of school that day. No, you stay home today. You're sick today. That's what he told him.
Right.
Yeah, you're sick today. Hey, Rob, you know what I have here, buddy? We might listen to. I got a little 2-minute clip of an interview, audio, dude, with John Martino. You want to play a little bit of it?
Hell yeah.
All right, let's do so. Here we go. Nothing is happening. This is just footage. I thought it had audio. It does not. It's just footage.
Hello, this is John
Here
Martino.
we go.
Oh.
Yeah. Here we go. It's coming. I promise. He's sitting down at the couch. Some of this is silent.
Well, the treatment in the prison, I was in the death house. I was held in the dungeon. I'm wearing these glasses for the reason that I'm practically blind. I weighed 150 pounds when I was arrested and weighed 90 pounds when I came home.
He's talking about the Cuban prison experience here. Okay, here's some more.
I would not advise an American invasion in Cuba. I would advise a total economic blockade by air or sea and arming the exiles, training them, and having them invade their country.
You feel Castro is gaining or losing ground in his country?
From reports coming from reliable sources in Cuba, Castro has less than 10% of the people of Cuba with him. But you must understand this man stays in power like every other communist with a reign of terror.
Have you met Castro personally?
Yes, I have.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, I think Fidel Castro is one of the most dangerous men in this hemisphere. And before it's all over, I predict that millions of Americans will die because this cancer wasn't cut out of this hemisphere 2 years ago when it should have been.
That was John Martino. According to, the research of Larry Hancock, Rob, I think he did interview Fred Clausen a couple of times. That was the guy, that was his friend's name, right? Clausen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he told Clausen that his role was facilitation of things, moving money around, the courier, making sure this guy got paid, making sure this guy got paid. He told Clausen a lot that Clausen only revealed after Martino passed away. I'm like, Rob, get Larry Hancock's new book, Tipping Point, for the best particulars on the Martino accusations. This was the guy that put together initially the biopoly raid, Operation Tilt. And I'll be quite honest with you, Rob. I believe I am a believer in John Martino's complicity. Ultimately, he fits in there somewhere. There's a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
That are accused that I don't think ultimately fit in. I think Martino does fit in this somewhere. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
No, I'm right there with you, and that's why I wanted to bring up that little gem of a memorandum and talk about it here on this show for the benefit of our listeners who may not have delved into our respective shows archives yet. There is much more about all this stuff on our respective shows, and urge you all to check it out. Good stuff.
Absolutely. There is something there when it comes to John Martino. So, Rob, before we get into our retorts and the email segment that everybody loves, you want to take a little break, buddy?
Hang on.
We have a little promo to play. Oh, you got one more thing?
I got one more thing.
All right, do your thing.
Okay. It should go relatively quickly. This is a letter to one of our favorite researchers, Doug.
Oh, dude, you did. It's all good. Take your time, man. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. You surprised me with an extra topic. I'm actually, yeah, man. It's a nice thing.
Well, it's quick hits, man. We bang them out like this.
That's yes.
So this is a letter written to one of our favorite researchers, and I'll reserve telling you who it's from until we get to the end. But this is a letter written on April the 9th of 1975 to Mr. Ed Tatro. Okay?
Interesting.
And bear with me, as this is a handwritten letter. Okay? So I might have some difficulty in reading it at times. But here we go. Dear Ed, it seems I'm always saying I'm sorry, but I am for the delay in writing this letter. But I have I don't know, I can't read that word, and it will seem this is one of them. I would like to say for one time in my life, and that I am not sorry for anything that I did, to stand up and say, take your best shot. I will not change. I express this is childish, but I am tired and I need a place to rest. However, to get to the nitty gritty with something in the one who classified the rifle, but I did see the story, or no, I did see the stamp 7.65 Mauser on the barrel. So this was no question. Okay.
See, I was thinking when you said the date, I seemed to be vaguely aware of Ed Tatro working with this individual back then. Yeah.
Yes. And yes, it did have a scope mounted on it, and that was at 1:05 p.m. as I looked at my watch when the Dallas police officer told us an officer had been killed in Oak Cliff. So you see, Tippett was dead at approximately 1:05 p.m., an impossible task for Oswald. As to the photograph of the shells, they were in uniform, lying on the floor no more than 2 inches apart, all facing the same direction when I found them. And there was no long bag to carry a rifle in, only the lunch sack and cold drink bottle. And I searched with the gusto of a hound dog.
You know, man, can I something just occurred to me when you were reading that about those shells, you know, and we talk about that, how the shells were found, you know, laying uniformly like that. Have you ever heard people that maybe make the argument, you know, they say, well, I have heard even people on our side say that, you know, there was probably somebody firing that rifle just to get evidence into the crime scene, you know? Ballistic evidence. Not Oswald, but someone.
Right.
But right. I don't know. I mean, are they going to stop and take the time to gather up the shells and lay them in a line?
Right.
If okay, we need to fire a couple of rounds from this thing to further tie Oswald to it, just to get some ballistic evidence in the crime scene on the other end. Okay, fine. Well, they would just leave the shells wherever they fly. They wouldn't arrange them. I guess what I'm saying is I don't believe that occurred. I don't think I believe that occurred, that somebody actually fired from the sniper's nest. I think the orientation of the shells to me indicates that all of that was planted. You know, that no conspirators actually fired anything from that window. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think the rifle was hidden ahead of time, and you know, it's a lot easier to sneak in 3 spent shells than a rifle.
Yeah, for real.
So, and look, I don't think the security of that building was like top notch back in the day. I'm sure there was windows left open all over the place, or you can go up the fire escape and raise a window and get in there and plant something and get out. You know, I don't see this place as being airtight at all, especially back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. But I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. I just had a thing occur to me.
Yeah. it goes on to say, as far as the man running down the grassy knoll and the station wagon, Dick Sprague has pictures. This as well as the clock showing what time, 12:44 p.m. I saw them in New York. Why he doesn't show them, I will never understand. As for the attempts on my life, I don't know who is behind it. I have been shot at in 67. In 69, my life was threatened. And in 70, my car was blown up. In 71, I was ran off a mountain in West Texas and my back broken, as well as my shoulder, left elbow, my left foot, and my right leg. So I have suffered somewhat. And then to top all that, my wife left me in 73 and took the children. So I say again, if you or your students, this be something and willing to pay the full price, as for what was on the tape of my testimony that is missing. I don't know what that says. Beltran asked me to identify some clothing, which I did, and this is all changed. Maybe Beelan. However, it was correct on the tape. Also, the description of the suspect and the station wagon was correct on the tape, but not in my testimony. Also, the time factor was changed somewhat, and the people I talked to, such as Officer Baker, was omitted. The tramp in the middle approached Penn and I in Los Angeles when we did show there, and before I could question him, he ran away. This is some 5 or 6 years later. This was no cigarette. There was no cigarette package found on the 6th floor. Please, Ed, don't worry about asking me anything. Be slow in answering, but I will always write, and I have been ruined financially, and my reputation has suffered. I have been totally disabled, but until they, whoever they are, silence me, and he underlines this, I will continue to tell it like it was. Sincerely yours, Roger Craig. P.S.
Roger Craig.
Enclosed is a copy of the Zapruder film. Maybe have something, but if not, you are welcome to it, and I hope it is good and it helps. Please write me at 10524 Luna Road, Dallas, Texas. It's something for me to change added postage or PSS. Ed, if I am ever afforded the opportunity and honor of talking to you and your students, I would be more than happy to tell them what happened and what could happen should they decide to stand up and say, no, I want the truth. Roger Craig. Okay?
Wow, so he gave Ed Tatro a copy of the Zapruder film.
Yes.
Roger Craig. How cool is that? That's pretty damn cool, man.
A month later, after writing this letter, he allegedly committed suicide.
Oh, wow. That was only a month before.
Now, does that letter sound like somebody? Now, of course, he had been through a lot of shit for sure.
Right. A ton. None of it any of his own making, by the way. None.
Yeah. He also clearly states in the letter and even underlines it to a point. I will continue to tell it like it was until they, whoever they are, silence me. So
Well, I think that pretty well spells things out right there,
yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, to me, that letter doesn't sound like somebody so depressed that they would take their own life.
No.
And of course, he did survive many attempts on his life. And if Dick Sprague had photos of the guy running down the grassy knoll that he identified as Oswald, and the station wagon he got into, but never published them, because Craig said he saw him when he was in New York, but Dick Sprague never released them or wouldn't show them to the public, and he doesn't know why.
There's also
interesting stuff.
Wasn't let's see, I'm Dick Sprague. There was something. Is it Dick Sprague that says he saw a different film of the assassination that was a lot clearer at one point? Or was
I think that was Morningstar.
Or was it Dick Sprague that said he saw another film of Oswald in the training camps in Florida or Louisiana?
That may have been
that nobody
Dick
else is.
Sprague.
Yeah, that nobody else ever saw. Or yeah, I think there's some kind of controversy about that, but I can't remember right off the top of my head. There's lots of things I can't remember off the top of my head today, Rob.
Well, there used to be some clips on YouTube of that supposed training movie with showing Oswald in there.
They're still there, yeah. It looks like him and Ferry and Sturgis and Marita Lorenz.
Yeah.
You know, and that's an interesting. Have you ever read Marita Lorenz's exchange with the HSCA talking about, how she met Oswald at some training camps in Florida when he's supposed to be in Russia?
Yes.
Yeah. And they're like, but Miss Lorenz, he was in Russia. That's impossible. And Marita Lorenz, she was a tough cookie, She's kind of like, I don't give a fuck where you say he was. I met the guy there. Look, I don't know nothing about Russia. Like, dude, I don't know nothing about that. It's fascinating, dude. Fascinating.
I know. Crazy stuff.
But Roger Craig, yeah, he had a rough go of it. He went from Deputy of the Year to, like, jobless in no time after the assassination, right? Or was it around the time of the Garrison investigation?
No, I believe he was still on the force. I think maybe it was 2 years after that in 65, but he might have been let go or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they started making his life miserable pretty fast after that.
Yeah, because he wouldn't change his story. They just called him, Decker said, well, no, he's just mistaken. And I think he accused Harry Weatherford of shooting from the roof of the county records building. And it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, you better be able to back that one up.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Anyway, that's all I got, Doug.
Wow. Roger Craig himself gave Ed Tatro a copy of the Zapruder film in 1975. That means it's like a reel-to-reel, Definitely not VHS. That's pretty cool. I hope Mr. Tatro still has that put away somewhere safe.
Yeah, that's definitely cool.
Yeah, man, that's a bona fide artifact in our thing, huh?
Definitely. Not too many original reel-to-reels left, man.
Oh, I know, and especially of Zapruder, given to you by Roger Craig. That's pretty damn cool.
Oh, and check this out. I did find an editorial piece that Harry Weatherford wrote into the Midlothian Mirror in August of 1968 about Roger Craig. And this is what it said.
Oh, boy.
Ex-Deputy Sheriff Roger Craig continues to receive static from his former associates in the office of the Dallas County Sheriff Bill Decker. Craig, now a corporation judge in Midlothian, called the Dallas County Sheriff's Office on Saturday in relation to his civil suit to be heard in Midlothian. Answering the phone was Deputy Sheriff Harry Weatherford, who asked, "Are you in jail yet?" Craig replied that he was the corporation court judge in Midlothian, and Weatherford responded, "Well, if you ever try to arraign me, there will be a goddamn gun battle, boy."
Damn
Weatherford
it.
is Weatherford is, of course, angry with Craig for telling what Weatherford did on November 22nd, 1963. Weatherford said he was on the roof of the records building with a rifle and a sign there by Bill Decker on that day.
Yeah, well,
So
he was there,
funny.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Roger Craig accused him of actually firing shots at Kennedy.
Correct.
Yeah, you better be able to back that one up. But
Yeah.
but was he actually there, or is that something that somebody else accused him of? He was actually there, right? I mean, Weatherford's
Allegedly.
but has Weatherford ever denied being up there?
Well, I think Weatherford put himself up there.
Okay. Making that clear for the listeners and clear for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Willie Weisberg, man, what about that guy?
Badass, man.
Badass. Well, Rob, do you want to take a little break, man, and let the listeners hear a little promo we got to play?
Yes, I'm going to go see A Man About a Horse while we do this.
All right. I'm going to go see a Zippo and a camel. Or not a camel, but a Marlboro is what I'm going to do. All right, guys, we'll be right back after this. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Doug.
Dude, we have been asked to let the dear listeners know about a new podcast in the genre of historical true crime coming soon via Spreaker.com.
That's right, we have. You're familiar with the name Stu Wexler, right?
Heck yeah, man. Well-known researcher, co-wrote several books with our friend Larry Hancock, I believe.
Yeah, books like Shadow Warfare, The Awful Grace of God, and Killing King. Well, Mr. Wexler is poised to launch a podcast soon, co-hosted by his friend and fellow researcher, Mr. Greg Koyman, called the Cold History Podcast.
Yep, the Cold History Podcast.
So what do we know about the Cold History Podcast, Doug?
Well, my good man, according to this promotional copy I have here, the Cold History Podcast will be an exploration into unsolved murders that reverberate through time to the present day, reconstructing the crimes with new data, interviewing living witnesses, it says, to inspire new formal investigations, records releases, and grand jury inquiries.
Oh, that's a noble goal for sure. And to kick the show off, a multi-part series of Cold History will cover the assassination of RFK in 1968.
Hey, man, I have it on good authority that Larry Hancock is an early guest as well.
Oh, I like that guy. So, guys, look for the Cold History Podcast with Stu Wexler and Greg Koyman soon from the same place you find our shows, the Lone Gunman Podcast, the Dallas Action Podcast, and Quick Hits Podcast. Spreaker.com.
Are back. Yes, yet another dose of Quick Hits, a JFK assassination research and news and notes podcast, the B Block. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Doug. With me, as always, Bob Clark. Hello, Bob.
Hello, Doug. Pleasure to be back.
All right.
After the break.
Dude, before we get into emails, sir, wanted just to bring this to everybody's attention. Cyril Wecht, Dr. Cyril Wecht, the famed forensic pathologist. He has a new book out, Publishing News and Notes, here at Quick Hits. He has one book out, to be exact. It is called, The Legend in Our Circles, Cyril Wecht. You and I got to meet him a few years ago, did we not?
We did. Great guy.
That was pretty cool, wasn't it?
Definitely. And he's certainly passionate about this subject for sure.
Dude, he gets fired up, doesn't he?
He does.
He gets fired. He's our greatest cheerleader. We love Dr. Cyril Wecht. Absolutely love him. Well, he has a new book out, The JFK Assassination Dissected, an analysis by forensic pathologist Cyril Wecht. And according to Amazon.com, this is the jacket copy for the book. Just want to let everybody know what's going on with it. It says, since John F. Kennedy's 1963 murder in Dallas, medical examiner and lawyer Dr. Cyril Wecht was initially inclined to accept the official theory that one person alone was responsible. But as Wecht delved into the evidence with boundless curiosity and unprecedented access, he came to understand that America had instead suffered a coup d'etat. Nobody else has Weck's up-close and personal experience in uncovering the facts behind this assassination, and now he's sharing it with the world. Rob, co-authored by investigative journalist Donna Kaufman, new from Cyril Weck, the JFK assassination dissected. So I just wanted to let everybody know about that, man. That's a big news. Go out and get a copy of that book for sure. Right, Rob?
Bob, thank you. And yes,
Bob, I'm sorry. Right, Bob? I fucked up there, Bob. It won't happen again, Bob.
Yes.
Okay, speaking of that, Bob, would you like to get the emails? I'm sure you've got a few.
I do.
All right, well, let's do it. Emails.
Oh, yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman.
All right, Rob.
All right, let's get right to it, Doug. Why fuck around?
All right.
This is the email that we've been waiting for the past 2.5 years since we started doing this show.
I think it hadn't been that long, though. It's because it's a response to an email that we actually sent, or not an email, but a message, a text message that we actually sent, maybe, it's probably been 4 or 5 months. No, it hasn't. Yeah. It was right around the, it was right after, it had to have been right after the release of JFK Revisited. So it was right around then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had to have been.
All right, here we go. Bob, and I presume Doug.
Bob.
Yes. Hence the running joke for today's show. I do not open Messenger very often, which is why this is so late. I have no interest in being on your program. Oliver and I are reaching literally millions of people in America and throughout the world. We have created real problems for the mainstream media, and the 4-hour version of the documentary is not even out yet in America. I have a problem with a program that will give Fred Litwin a podium. To me, that is inexcusable. Someone also sent me a clip where you read off the notice of some no-name archaeologist. How that qualifies him as a critic escapes me. To smear JFK Revisited.
Smear.
Why would I go on a show like that? As per your comments on piggybacking and trollism, I presume this means that I call Black Op Radio the best podcast out there on the JFK case. I say that because it is a simple fact. No one has as many important guests and interviews them at length as Len does. No one is even close. So thanks, but no thanks. Jim DiEugenio. Well, Doug,
I think we got to respond a little, don't you?
Yeah, I think we need to retort.
Oh, well, allow me to retort.
Allow me to retort, ladies and gentlemen, the segment where we respond to things sometimes here on Quick Hits. So settle in and we'll tell you the story.
All right, now just to preface things for the listeners out there a little bit, the whole genesis of this email came from the fact that Jim DiEugenio tried to piggyback on a Facebook post concerning this very show here, Quick Hits, that Doug posted in one of the many Facebook JFK assassination groups out there.
Yeah, if you guys have probably seen the post, if you're a member of the group. Well, I posted our regular thing. Hey, it's a new episode of Quick Hits, and Mr. DiEugenio went to the comment section with a comment that went something like, well, you could listen to this or you could listen to Oliver on Black Op Radio. That's what he put in the comment, kind of thing. And naturally, that irritated me a little bit. That is trollism. That's just internet trollism. I don't give a shit how you look at it. That's just being a troll. Make your own post, dude. Make a post that says, hey, Oliver Stone's on Black Op Radio or whatever. But to go in...
No need to hop on the Quick Hits post promoting our show to promote somebody else on somebody else's show.
It's a dick move. It's
It
a
is
dick move. It's a dick move. So we sent, Rob sent him a message. It basically said, look, instead of like piggybacking on our post and trolling us, make your own poster. Here's an idea. Come on the show and talk to us. A lot of people are listening. And that's basically what you sent him, right, Rob?
Pretty much. I was being facetious for most of the message, just because I thought it was funny.
Well, now here's the thing. Now I was thinking about this on the way here this morning, dude. It was sarcasm. Your message, actually, invite him on the show, saying, "Hey, dude, don't troll us. Just come on the fucking show." It was done sarcastically. Some people wouldn't know sarcasm if it were standing 2 feet in front of them, wearing a sign around its neck that said, "I am sarcasm."
This is true.
Yeah.
And like I said, we waited months for a response and finally got one in the email bag here at Quick Hits JFK. So here's the deal. Now he specifically mentions in this email that he and Oliver are literally reaching millions of people in America and throughout the world. And let me just say for the record,
that's a fair assumption. That's fair.
That's a true statement.
Damn right.
You are.
They're bringing an immense amount of awareness to the subject and to the issue.
That's correct. And of course, this documentary wouldn't be anything without the original movie, to look back on. And like we discussed on a previous show, the name of this documentary, JFK Revisited, is a misnomer because it doesn't mention anything about the original movie. It's more of a standalone, recent kind of thing. And probably something that Oliver Stone wanted to revisit is, Doug, I couldn't tell you the last time he had a hit movie.
Oh, man. I think the most...
Just saying.
Yeah.
And
Will,
I'm sure this relationship
I don't know
rekindled.
how much viewership his Ukrainian documentaries get in Eastern Europe. Those could be big. Those could be huge.
I doubt it. But I'm sure this relationship was rekindled and in fact, at the conference that I was at in Dallas in 2019 was probably the regenesis of this kind of thing. And his rapport with the writer of the documentary, Jim DiEugenio, of course, he's going to take it personally because he allegedly wrote the documentary. And, when we reviewed this documentary, we were fair.
I gave it 7 out of 10 stars. 7 out of 10.
Were very
that's
fair.
Pretty good. And the thing about, I think that's the one thing, the misrepresentation of the other stuff that I read. All right, a listener who emails us all the time, a guy named Jeffrey Shanks, wrote a very long, very well thought out review of JFK Revisited. He watched it twice. Once by himself.
It doesn't matter that he's an archaeologist, Jim. You're a freaking English teacher.
Well, the reason I brought that up is just saying, look, this is just not some, goofball. The guy he's a smart guy, and he's a level-headed guy. I was just saying, hey, this guy, it's not that being an archaeologist makes him more qualified to critique whatever. It's just, it was just that. But the point is, he did have some critiques of JFK Revisited, but he had just as many very nice and glowing things to say about it as he did critiques. But to Jim DiEugenio, he calls that a smear. The guy, oh, wow, man. Wow. You know what I mean? The guy had...
The criticism... of the documentary is well founded. I mean, you have to take the good with the bad, Doug. Nobody's going to put out a documentary that everybody's going to be happy with. No matter what facts are presented, no matter what documents are presented, no matter which viewpoint is presented, nobody is going to be 100% on board with it.
But if you're not 100% on board with it, it's a smear. It's a dirty, nasty smear. If you don't kiss ass, it's a dirty, nasty smear. There's no in between. There's no rationality.
Yeah, that's
the guy said, well, I would like to, and Mr. Shanks, he says, well, I would like to have seen more about this subject, and this subject, but it was great on this level, this level, this level, this level, this level, and this level. But to him, that's a smear. All right? And it's unreasonable. What the fuck it is. It's just unreasonable. And then your name is Bob, not Rob. Can't get that right. Can't get that right.
He knows who I am. We've interacted on the Ed forum before. In Messenger, it clearly says what my name is. And obviously he's listened to this show before. He knows who we are. He wants to play stupid, but he knows who we are.
I've forwarded that email to someone whom I've heard Jim DiEugenio publicly praise recently. And his response was, what the fuck did you expect? Someone criticized him. What, you expected anything different? So not really. Ultimately, no. I don't guess I did. But it was surprising the amount of, the way he misrepresented the review by a viewer. And what Mr. DiEugenio, what makes Mr. Shanks qualified is that he knows his shit. He's a reasonable individual. And here's what makes him qualified to review your documentary, sir. He watched it. But that's all. You know what qualifies a man to be a literary critic, Mr. DiEugenio? Read the book. And you're
DiEugenio
when you read the
dish
book,
it out.
Yeah.
But he can't take it. That's all he does when he does book reviews and movie reviews. He criticizes
That's
everything
what it is.
Down to the very last detail. But he can't take a little bit of criticism.
Not even criticism that is coupled with more praise, as in the case of the review by the viewer and the listener that we read, which was very well thought out. I can't remember which episode it was. Y'all go back and find it. Just a couple months ago. But again, he had way more good to say about JFK Revisited than he did critiques. All right? And
so did we.
Right. But the critiques were like, well, I would like to have seen more of this and more of this. Not, that was stupid, that was wrong, that was ignorant. That's not where we were. We're on his side. We're on Oliver Stone's side. We're saying, would have been nice to see more about the Gunboat Cowboys. Would have been nice to see more about Dark Complected Man. Would have been nice to see more about Santiago Marino. Things like that. That's where
nice to see less Alan Dulles and Dealey Plaza.
Right. Those were our critiques. It wasn't anything malicious, anything attacking the content, right? But that's what he needs to understand. What makes him qualified to critique and to review JFK Revisited? He watched it. And ultimately, that is the only qualification any reasonable human being needs to review anything.
Same goes for the guy from Rolling Stone. What makes him a critic? Well, he probably watched it.
Yeah. What makes a music critic qualified to critique that song by that songwriter? Well, he listened to the song. That's all it takes. And to think and to say that it takes anything more than that is, it is what it is. And I'll let that speak for itself,
If you don't know by now that opinions are like assholes and that everybody's got one.
And most of them stink.
Right. Then you're not you're not with the real, how the real world works. You have to be able to pour your passion into a project and let it stand on its own 2 feet and let the dust settle where it may, whether it's good, whether it's bad. People are still talking about the documentary and their thoughts about it. They're still getting it out there.
I'm
if this
still
asshole
talking
from
about
Rolling
it.
Stone never wrote about it,
I'm still talking about it. I have told people who are not into the case like we are, you should watch this. Yeah, you should watch this. Some of it's going to blow your mind. I mean, no shit. And even after...
Does it have some facts that are thrown out there that are totally baseless? Yes. Does it have a bunch of good document-based research and medical evidence in there? Yes. But you got to take the good with the bad. And I understand you're not the editor of the movie. You don't have the final say what goes in and out, and nobody's really seen the 4-hour version yet. But, it is what it is.
It is what it is. But still, dude, Mr. DiEugenio, again, instead of, trollism, just come on the show, dude. It's that simple. We're harmless. We will be so nice. Yeah. Oh, my God.
And to get your panties in a bunch because I gave Fred Litwin a podium.
Hey,
okay?
He doesn't know your first name, but he, by God, knows you had Fred Whitland on 2 years ago.
Right. I've had Fred Litwin on my show twice. You know why? Because this is the land of the free and the home of the brave. And on my show, okay, if you have spent years of your life researching the case, gathering documents, taking the time to write a book and put yourself out there, then we can have a conversation about it. Whether or not I think you're totally wrong or you're totally off base is irrelevant. Okay? If we can have a civil conversation about things, and we don't always have to meet, eye to eye on things, but Fred Litwin is a nice human being, whether you agree with him or not. He is a nice human being. He was nice enough to send me a free copy of his book before I had him on the show so that I could read it and have an intelligent conversation with him regarding his viewpoints in the book. Okay? And I'm sure, because it happened pretty damn quickly, Jimmy DiEugenio probably wrote his 10-part anti-Fred Litwin book bashing post on Kennedy and King's. He probably didn't even read the book. He probably saw the key points in it, and that was it. That's all. That set him off enough to just go. And nowhere is Fred Litwin saying, look, Oswald was Leonard Assassin, blah, blah. His focus was on the Jim Garrison investigation. Did Jim Garrison do everything 100% right? Hell no.
Well, that reminds me of something that I heard, a while back. There was a gentleman that wanted to put something together with contributions from other from researchers, and there was one guy that agreed to do it, right? Like he's like, oh, it's inexcusable you gave Fred Litwin a platform on your thing, Well, like this guy was telling me that all these a bunch of researchers agreed to contribute, right, to this thing you wanted to do. And then one guy heard that another guy was going to contribute, right? Guy A heard that, Guy B was going to be in on it. And Guy A just threw a fit like, how dare you not clear that through me? Right? So the guy putting the thing together is like, what the fuck, homie? It's my thing. It's my thing. And it's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not like Fred Litwin, but he posts documentation to back up what he's saying, okay? There's a lot of problems with the Garrison investigation, whether or not you want to worship at the Jolly Green Giant's feet and think that everything he did was spot on, I mean, personally, I'm happy that Garrison did what he did, even if it wasn't for the right reasons or with the right outcome or anything like that, because it gave us so much more information about the case from, witnesses and evidentiary things.
He was responsible for ground-breaking reveals of knowledge. No doubt.
Yes.
No doubt.
No doubt.
We do nothing
Whether
but
or not he
laud,
was right
Mr.
about
Garrison.
Clay Shaw is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Whether or not he was right about David Ferry is irrelevant.
Yeah, but we can't put him on a pedestal and, like some people tend to do, I think maybe erroneously with the Kennedys, like they're beyond any fault whatsoever in any of this, or in anything for that matter. Or they're incapable of having done anything wrong or made a wrong decision. There are those out there that feel that way about the Kennedy brothers, and there are those that feel that way about Garrison as well. We have to be realistic about things. I mean, they're just as fallible as, say, you or I.
Just because Clay Shaw lied about having CIA connections and this and that still doesn't make him involved in the murder of JFK. Maybe Garrison was right. He had CIA connections and Shaw lied about it. Sure. But that still doesn't involve him in the assassination of JFK per se.
And neither does an association with David Ferry.
Correct.
David Ferry was involved in a lot of stuff, nefarious stuff. But now look, man, back to Litwin a minute, Mr. Litwin. Did I read somewhere that he made a blog? I probably shouldn't even talk about this because I haven't read it. And you know me, I like to read stuff before I comment on it. But something about David Ferry, we'll talk about it off air. I don't want to comment on it on air having not read it. That's a dick move. Why, that's like reviewing a book you haven't read, isn't it, Rob? Excuse me, Bob.
Yes, Bob.
Bob. Okay, so we got that out of our system, right? We sent a halfway sarcastic, smart-ass invite to come on the show because he trolled us, and then he got Rob's name wrong. Excuse me, Bob's name wrong, and wrote us a nasty email back, and we just thought we needed to respond to it, get it off our chest. Over and done with now, right, Rob? I ain't even gonna think about it no more.
I'll keep chewing on it, and we might revisit in the future.
Okay, we might revisit it in the future. All right, guys. So this has been...
Well, allow me to retort.
On Quick Hits. So I guess now we're back to the old listener emails, right, Rob?
We are back to the listener emails.
Some people, it's their favorite part of the show.
Yeah, and you think we plan this shit out, but we don't. Hi, guys. The December JFK assassination document releases revealed that Clay Shaw was highly paid by the CIA. Like Doug, I don't fully support the Garrison investigation because while I believe Garrison, got some things right, there's still much I'm not sure about, such as whether or not Shaw conspired with others to assassinate JFK. I believe we just went over all that, didn't we, Doug?
I believe we just did. Preemptively. We didn't even know. I didn't even know that was coming.
I didn't either.
Yeah, because you never pre-screen these, do you?
I don't.
Hey.
I let them sit in here in the email queue until the day of the show, and I open them first come, first serve.
At our next production meeting, I'm going to suggest that we at least glance through them.
Oh, no. No. It's much better we just go cold.
It takes away the fun for Rob, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That said, however, does official confirmation of Shaw being highly paid by the CIA vindicate Jim Garrison in this particular regard? Or is it, as several lone nutters have said to me on social media, that the highly paid revelation isn't official at all, and it therefore proves nothing about Shaw being CIA? The reason I ask so many questions is because you guys know so much about the case, and I respect your opinions. Plus, the best way to get answers is to ask questions.
That's right.
That's right. Love the show. Keep up the good work. Best wishes. Chris O'Brien from Scotland.
Mr. Chris O'Brien, thank you very much for the informative email. Does it vindicate Garrison? My opinion is partially, absolutely.
Yes, and like we discussed regarding Jim DiEugenio's email, it doesn't prove anything one way or the other as regards of his involvement or alleged involvement in the JFK assassination. You know, I can see a scenario, okay, where Clay Shaw is an international businessman, okay, meaning he does business with and travels to a lot of foreign countries in the process of doing his duties. And I could see where it would be of an interest to our government to maybe sit down with Clay Shaw upon his return to this country and just ask him or have a conversation about what maybe he saw, how things were going in the country, his thoughts on things. I mean, because Clay Shaw was a highly intelligent, educated, former military man, businessman.
Well, also
And
international trade was his thing. I mean, he's gonna have information that government intelligence agencies are gonna want.
agreed.
See if you can get close to this. Say, off the top of my head, oil and commodities brokers. See, how much are they selling to the Soviet Union? This Ukrainian bunch. How much are they selling to the Soviet Union a month now? Things like that. And I'm just using that as a dumb example, but that type of international trade information, Clay Shaw's going to have, and he did a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I can see it turning from a basic debriefing upon his return, where they just ask questions, to getting to the point where it's, we'll pay you if you keep your eyes open for certain things and can get us better information. I could see that.
Yeah.
It's not a stretch, but it doesn't mean that he was, a CIA employee, a CIA undercover agent, or anything like that. He was a highly paid contact agent or asset, if you will, to the CIA. And his involvement in doing so does not necessarily preclude him from, being highly involved in the Kennedy assassination. Two totally different things. But it does vindicate Garrison's beliefs that he did have ties with the CIA, but I don't think it changes anything when it comes to the assassination. But thank you, Chris, for your email. All right, Doug. We have another email from Wayne Warner.
Wayne Warner. What is up, Wayne Warner?
Wayne says, a nurse at Parkland witnessed the hole and remarked to her friend, a through and through hole. A policeman at Parkland said you could put a pencil right through it. When they sent the limo to Detroit, it spent time in the glass plant where they made a duplicate windshield. And I suspect the CIA or FBI manufactured a crack in the duplicate windshield to dispel all the witnesses who observed an actual hole. The two agents that escorted JFK's corpse to the autopsy, Siebert and O'Neill, had both recorded in their report that they had observed sutures from a post-mortem surgery that had been performed on Kennedy's throat, something that doctors at Parkland knew nothing about. So when was the surgery performed? Somewhere between Parkland and Bethesda? I think the surgery served two purposes. One, to attempt to hide the incision for the trach tube / bullet hole. Second, to remove the glass fragments that would have shown up in a real autopsy. This was a very fluid situation, and they had to prepare for all eventualities. Also, I think a trained shooter would not have been aiming for his throat. He would have been aiming for a headshot or center mass. That would explain a slight deflection from the glass. A scoped, high-powered rifle from under 200 feet would be like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yep.
Right between Kellerman and Greer, right between Connolly and Nellie. I urge you to take a look. A closed mind is an empty one. Well, fuck you, Wayne. I'd like to say there is no closed minds here on Quick Hits. But thank you for your email. And just to answer some questions raised here, in order to put a through and through bullet hole in the windshield.
I was listening so intently, dude. There was no breath before you said that between the end of the email. It completely
Look,
caught me off guard.
there's no filter between brain and mouth here. You know, you would have to, and all this is hearsay. You know, so and so said, I told a friend, a policeman said this, da 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 da. Okay, for them to cover up the fact that there was a through and through bullet hole in the windshield, would be a very intricate conspiracy all on its own. Okay. Um, and to think that a sniper would rely on the fact that his bullet going through a curved piece of glass could still hit his target um, is just not believable to me. Now, I'm not being closed minded, mind you, um, but there's a lot more opportunities in Dealey Plaza than to have to go through the front windshield of the limousine between four people and assure a hit on your target. Okay.
Well, now also think about this. If we're talking about a South Knoll shot, you got to think about the elevation and how Dealey Plaza is actually a downhill grade, right? If a sniper's on the South Knoll, that shot is probably over the windshield because of the downhill slope of the road, right? So you could still...
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to go through the windshield.
Right. But, I mean, because the whole thing's going to shatter, you know, number one. Or at least, you know, a lot of it's going to shatter. But, you know, a South Knoll shooter, because of the grade of the elevation, how the road is a downhill grade, you know, from there, aren't you going to be pretty well above the windshield firing at the crowd in the car?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I could be wrong, but I think so.
Yeah, but then you're looking at going over the heads of the driver and Nelly to hit your target.
Not easy.
Which again is not favorable odds either.
Not favorable.
You know, and if a bullet came through that front windshield, you better believe that Greer or Kellerman, whoever was driving, would have had a very adverse reaction to that. I mean, you're tootling down the road, and all of a sudden you get a bullet through the windshield.
And not only that, but they were occupying more space in the windshield, in the area of the windshield, than there was space to miss them with a bullet.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So we're not closed-minded here. It's just we're open-minded, but you have to take everything into consideration of what would have likely happened and what is very unlikely to have happened. And that scenario is just unlikely to me, anyway. As far as the post-mortem surgery, you know, between Bethesda and Parkland, you know, this is old, isn't it, Doug? This is David Lifton, Best Evidence.
Yeah,
stuff.
David Lifton stuff, for sure. First read that book, Best Evidence, when I was 11.
Again, you know, it's an allegation. It's an unprovable allegation. Is it interesting? Yes. Are there questions about it, all that? Yes. Definitive answers? No. We don't have them. So, you know, we can argue all day about that, but
I am much less convinced by the book Best Evidence than I was, you know, in the past, than I have been in the past. For sure.
Yes. And then Wayne sent a follow-up email. And said, "Is this Roger Craig?" In which he sent me a picture that, Doug, you can't see. But let me.
So I'm gonna say yes.
Well, I'm gonna say no. Because I know what Roger Craig looks like, and I know what he was wearing that day.
Okay, no.
Correct. And this is the picture. Looks to be, to me, if you can picture Dealey Plaza, and you can picture the corner of Elm Street, okay?
Yeah.
It appears to be from the angle. If you're looking at the school book depository and the Dowtex building, like the edges of their building is touching. So it's very close to the corner of Elm Street. And it looks like a Dallas police officer, a white hat, a detective with a fedora, and a balding gentleman standing behind them with a jacket over his arm. They are bending down, and he's pointing at a truck.
Okay.
That appears to be from the late 40s, early 50s, and it has what appears to be a wooden structure on the back of it. It's dual tires on the back, and right above the truck, you can see the 5th and the 6th floor windows of the school book depository, and everybody's looking back at the building and pointing at it, but the truck is kind of in front of the entrance, if you will. But to answer your question, Wayne, no, I don't think this is Roger Craig in this picture. I'm not sure who it is or what they're doing or what they're looking at or what they're pointing at, but no, this is not Roger Craig.
All right. Thank you for the emails, Wayne.
Another one from Wayne. You son of a bitch, you. This is 3 in a row.
He's busy, isn't he?
He sent a YouTube link about bullet holes in the limousine and extra bullets in Dealey Plaza, extended English version. Thank you, Wayne.
Well, at least we got the English version.
Yes.
That'll come in handy.
We may or may not take a look at that and discuss further at a later date. All right. Next up, from another one of our esteemed listeners, Geraldine Johnstone. Hello, Rob. We've just bought a purr mouse for the kids. We named him Rob for obvious reasons. Jerry.
What?
A purr mouse.
What is that?
I don't know. It's a PER mouse. I guess it's like I think it was meant to say a pet mouse.
Oh.
And they named him Rob for obvious reasons. And
I still don't get the reference, though.
Well, you would if you saw the picture. He has a very bulging sack, if you will, for a small mouse.
Okay.
He's got a very handsome set of nuts on him.
Does he really?
And I don't mean the kind you can eat. Yes.
Oh, wow. Rob the hung
Geraldine,
mouse.
That does represent your boy's sack. I love it when my sack is bulging just like that. It's amazing.
We got a good crew, don't we, Rob?
Yes. All right, next up. Gentlemen, in this missive, I want to dispense with my usual persiflage and focus on what to me is a far more serious and egregious issue. I refer to the hagiographies of President Kennedy that pervade many of the conspiracy-based podcast websites and articles.
What does that mean?
I have no fucking idea.
Is that the
using very big words here? God damn it!
Is that the Trinity River 33rd degree thing? Numbers and whatnot.
Dude, I don't know. I've already lost. Allow me to state at the beginning that personally I'm a supporter of the JFK presidency generally, and certainly I think we can all agree that he did not deserve to be shot down in the streets of Dallas like a dog, or have his reputation shredded posthumously. Sorry.
Yeah.
However,
that's stating the obvious, but go ahead.
I think the discourse is sullied on both sides in the way he's misrepresented. While the Oswald alone supporters might often mention JFK's faults, conspiracy theorists, one website or podcast in particular tend to paint him as some sort of saint with no faults whatsoever.
Oh, we were just talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Block Up Radio. not to make this email too long, but here are a few quick examples. His womanizing. The evidence is pretty clear here. Exner's and Monroe's numerous calls noted in the White House log should be enough to support Doug's contention that, quote, if your wife or husband can't trust you, I can't either. Yet, for example, there is an article on one of the websites where the owner's sweatpants tint significantly at the mention of Dulles that contends that these trysts never happened or were the fault of the Republicans. I kid you not. In the end, his behavior was hurtful to his wife, reckless, and endangered him personally and also national security. This is true. Next up, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yes, his finest hour was keeping his head when the world could have easily ended up in ashes. For that, we should all be grateful. But what were the causes of that crisis? Surely his bellicose statements before the election, including on the supposed missile gap, which he knew in fact favored the U.S., his inauguration speech, etc., played a part, and his, by his own admission, appalling performance in Vienna when he met Khrushchev for talks and the Soviet premier batted him around the room and walked away with the impression that JFK was just some inexperienced boy who would not stand up to pressure. These events surely colored a Soviet view that they could install nuclear weapons in Cuba with impunity. Damn. Operation Mongoose. It seems to me that if the Kennedys knew of plots to assassinate Castro even after the Cuban Missile Crisis, they were both reckless, foolhardy, and dangerous, let alone acting illegally. If they didn't know, which I doubt, then they just weren't very competent managers of the institution of government. And after all, JFK himself said he was the responsible officer of the government, or the buck stops here, as Truman said.
I also think maybe the Kennedys didn't fully understand that clique of, those lifelong intelligence officers and those lifelong, the military joint chiefs, the lifelong Cold War military warriors. And I think the Kennedys were surprised at how much pushback they got. And I think they underestimated those people and how compliant they would be to a new administration.
Right.
Yeah. But now let me also say this. A lot of people in the research community do take the time to really get in deep in the weeds studying the history of the Kennedy foreign policies and analyzing Kennedy foreign policy and domestic policy and that kind of thing. It's not an area that I've done a whole lot of study of. I'm way more apt to be, like you said, Rob, reading and studying documents and tangentially connected things to stuff, things like, John Martino or, Lee Harvey Oswald. The foreign policy aspect of it is not something that I've dived deep into,
Yeah. I mean, there's not going to be any answers there. I mean, you can look at it if you want to, and you could, convey the fact that these might be reasons that people wanted him out of the office or worse. It all comes back to proof. Prove it. It's just fodder for speculation.
And I don't buy the that there are people that'll tell you, well, you'll never understand the JFK assassination if you don't know his Southeast Asia policy. See, it didn't happen. No, I don't know. No, that goes back to that monolithic
politics or shit.
Well, it goes back to the monolithic, consensus view of CIA primacy and all that stuff. And, Averell Harriman gave Dulles the order to murder Kennedy. No, you know what? No, he didn't.
Right. And CIA, if they didn't agree with the president's foreign and domestic policies, that they could take it upon themselves to change them regardless of anyone else's wants or needs, is a very highly suspect conjecture. So the email goes on to say, let's also not forget that in those covert operations that Kennedys favored so much, innocent people did die.
Oh,
those
yeah,
killed
now
in Cuba weren't.
He's right about that, man. They did love them some covert ops. as long as they were their covert ops. See the quarantine of everybody May 30th and April 1st of 1963, when they, okay, everybody stop. If you catch them out of Dade County, arrest them and throw them in prison, as long as they were their operations.
Yep. It said those killed in Cuba weren't all government apparatus or soldiers alone. And then Vietnam. A lot is said about JFK wanting to withdraw from Vietnam. Maybe so, but this is the man who increased U.S. advisors there from 400 to 16,000. We also know that time after time, Kennedy would not enact policies because his majority at the election was so small and gained with mafia assistance, and that's another issue. He often cited the need to be reelected as a damper on moving forward. So who knows if he would really have withdrawn. Had the 64 election been close, the chances are he might not have, or RFK's election chances might have been trashed. Let's also not forget Agent Orange, a chemical weapon which to this day continues to result in child abnormalities. JFK not only approved that, he actually increased the budget allocation over and above what had been asked for. So these are just a few examples. On the plus side, of course, we could quote many positive examples, like his attempts to advance civil rights, taking on the steel companies, the Peace Corps. It should be a balanced picture, not skewed one way or the other. But in the end, like all of us, he was just a human being.
It should be a balanced picture, but I'm going to do 7 paragraphs about all the bullshit he did and 1 about his good qualities.
Right. And as such, he had his faults, weaknesses, and his outstanding virtues. We all have some things of which we should be ashamed of, and he was no different. I find the promotion of the late president as some sort of saint extremely misleading, and in the end, an example of baseline dishonesty. His murder was bad enough without having to embroider his life with it.
And I agree with that. Well, I without having to, yeah, okay. I agree with that, yeah.
He says, am I being unfair or just realistic? Yours in earnest, but not Barry. Tim the Eugenicist Sweatpants. Wow, we have a serious email from Tim.
I would never in a million years guessed that email was from him until you read the sign off there.
Me either.
Wow.
Yeah.
He got his wife to write that. Come on.
Who, Lisa? Oh.
Rob, come on, man.
Lisa, please. Could you come here for a second?
I mean, get the hell out of here with that.
All right, next up, Doug. From Poof Patch.
Oh, boy. Easy for you to say, buddy.
One simple question becomes an enigma. Who assassinated the president? It is interesting to me that we are requesting documents and knowledge from organizations tied to the government who we believe are in some way complicit. This is true. What possible motivation would these organizations have to expose their own activities? Do we think they are going to say, yes, you got us, we are guilty, and we covered up and manipulated the events of the day? Here are the incriminating documents that you've been looking for, people.
Damn good point.
A sea of documents may hide clues, but these documents are certainly no smoking guns, especially when some documents conflict with other documents. We know that we are requesting documents from organizations who are skilled and practice at manipulation. We know that these organizations can and have fabricated documents and infiltrate subcultures. Maybe we are in the rabbit hole that they did create. I will begin this email with a brief statement. Well, shit, it's already been a long one, but okay.
Wait, he just said, I'm going to begin this email with a brief statement?
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought he was done.
No, just getting started, apparently. This topic appears to be an anomaly, an endless puzzle, a wormhole within a wormhole. Even the simplest questions lead to a sea of possibilities.
Yep.
For example, if I begin with Oswald and label him as an unstable communist sympathizer, then I am left with a series of questions. Why did a person who defected to Russia and allowed to return to the U.S., who has military training, who was seen passing Fair Play for Cuba pamphlets, secure a job at a location near the presidential motorcade route, a route unknown to the public when Oswald began his employment at the depository. Why did Ruth Payne, who was connected to Des Moines Shield, help Oswald secure employment at the book depository? Ruth's effect appears incongruent with answering questions. Her responses appear scripted. At best, she is an odd bird. Des Moines Shield was found dead from a shotgun wound. After returning to the United States, why did Oswald secure a job at Jagger, Childs, Stovall in matters dealing with national defense?
Hey, I just did an episode about that. A couple episodes ago, emailer talked about Jagger, Childs, Stovall quite a bit, the Dallas action. Go check that out.
Yes, an odd occurrence for sure. Of course, why did Ruby shoot Oswald? More questions about Oswald being used as an asset, having connections to the intelligence community, who takes curtain rods to work, who goes back for his pistol after the assassination, who was having a soda and sandwich as the motorcade was passing by, who was being sheep-dipped as a sympathizer, who was seen with David Ferry before the assassination, and on ad infinitum. A simple question, who is Oswald? He certainly appeared to be moving around with impunity, as if he was being handled. Each person played their part, moving him around. One exercise that could produce a different set of results would be to remove Oswald and Ruby from the equation altogether. Eliminate anything connected to the two, and then ask yourself what remains. If it is a conspiracy, what is not Oswald and not Ruby may provide new avenues. I do think both Oswald and Ruby are connected to the conspiracy, but too much focus on the two can become a distraction. Here we go, Doug.
Let me guess, now the email starts.
Yeah. Here's what he's really wanting to say. Here we go.
Okay.
Earl Cabell was the mayor of Dallas at the time of the assassination.
Yes.
And was a CIA asset. Earl's brother, Charles, was forced by JFK to resign as deputy director of the CIA. This was after the failed Bay of Pigs debacle. Further, Earl and his wife were in the motorcade, and his wife, Deary, state that she did not... Further, Earl and his wife were in the motorcade, and his wife, Deary, stated that she did see a rifle in the window of the book depository after the first shot.
I have read that.
I know that being the mayor of Dallas or being an asset does not make you an assassin, but there does appear to be mixed opinions about Earl's being an asset and his brother's involvement with JFK. As to the wife Deary and what she saw on that day, real or imagined, it is worth considering. David Atlee Phillips. I have attached a document concerning David Atlee Phillips. It's a lengthy document. The document is in two parts as the interview breaks for recess and resumes after. Phillips is being asked about his knowledge of Oswald as it relates to Mexico City and communication interceptions and his connection to Oswald, if any. Some of the testimony in mind is mind-numbing and what you would expect, but the later questions in the document are the types of questions that most of us would consider if we could have a sit-down with Mr. Phillips. I'm not sure that he was Oswald's handler, but I do believe that Phillips had more knowledge about Oswald and the assassination. At about page 92 of the attached document, the Morris Bishop pseudonym and Vestiana's payments are in question. It is interesting to hear Phillips' perspective on this matter. Page 105 of the PDF, line 17 of the document. For the record, I will ask, have you ever seen or met Lee Harvey Oswald? And that's it from Poof Patch, which with his gigantic attachment, multi-100-page document that I'm not going to go through here.
It must be
show.
I bet it's his HSCA testimony or one of them, because I know he testified a couple of times, I believe. A couple of different sessions for Phillips.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I've got that in this very computer right here, probably on that thumb drive sticking out of it, I would bet.
Yeah, I think we've made our feelings on David Phillips and his Vestiana interactions and his feelings on Oswald well known on this program and our respective shows as well.
Yep. Now, I will say that I believe David Atlee Phillips, I agree with the emailer that he knew way more about Lee Harvey Oswald and the assassination that he led on, not necessarily out of any complicity on his part, but the way he actively helped to cover it up shows that he knew something was wrong, for sure.
Yeah, and he may have known that some rogue elements of the CIA may have been involved, and of course, if that's what you're thinking, you might want to keep that close to your vest because if they can kill the president and get away with it, chances are you probably won't be a problem either.
Yeah, and for my Poof Patch, is that the name of the emailer? For my go back through the Dallas Action Archives, find a show. Can't remember what number it is, but the title is Action Reaction: The Two Plot Scenario. That'll give you my outlook on Phillips's role or non-role. That whole thing. That'll let you know where I'm at there.
Yeah, I mean, I think his ties to Vessiano have been pretty much well debunked by John Newman's work. And
well, at least Vessiano's multiple versions of those ties have been debunked.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. Yeah, I do believe he definitely probably knew more about Oswald than he ever let on, for sure. All right, next up, Doug, from Gary Miller.
Oh, Gary Miller. Yes, I remember Mr. Miller.
He says, "Hey guys, thanks as always for humoring me. I can't start an email to this show without shitting out a thought or two before I get to my question. Sorry about that, but I really appreciate your guys' candor and have full confidence you'll let me know if I'm swimming in a hog lagoon."
Is that a Bay of Pigs reference?
I believe so.
Well,
I believe so.
Clever.
Clever Gary.
Hello, Gary.
I heard Rob mention in passing on one of the recent podcasts that if we had drones at the Bay of Pigs, the outcome would have been different. I know he was thinking of the strike drones we have in our possession today, but did you guys know that JFK's older brother was killed in a crash while testing a very new drone program in 1944? There are some very worthwhile side tunnels in the JFK rabbit hole.
Man, ain't that the truth? That's why we do it.
That's right. I also learned that we had supersonic reconnaissance drones going over China in the early 60s. Apparently, a few of them crashed, and the Chinese government, who didn't want to admit to its citizens that the USA was so technologically advanced, covered up these crashes by fabricating UFO stories. Sound familiar? Anyway, learning about this admitted capability really opened my mind to all the possibilities of advanced weaponry that may have made it into the hands of military government black operators back then. So I was reading the 1968 Playboy magazine Jim Garrison interview a few months ago, and I'm sure fapping on the side. Besides recognizing word for
That's
word
what I was
dialogue
about to say. Yeah, I'm sure you were reading the articles, my good man.
That's right. Sure, Gary. Besides recognizing word for word dialogue that was used in the movie JFK, I really started to get a sense that the guy conducting the interview was really plugged in to what was going on in the 60s, and he had to have some crazy insider knowledge. The guy who was talking to Garrison was named Eric Norden. So I got a little curious about who this guy was and headed over to the trusty old internet to do some searching on my man. Problem is, I couldn't find diddly squat. Now, this Norden character was a prolific writer. In January of '64, he wrote a piece for the Minority of One entitled Death of a President, and he really nailed the assassination. Excuse me, this was only a month and a half or so after it happened. He conducted an exclusive interview for Playboy with Mark Lane in February of '67. He wrote thousands of articles for countercultural magazines in the 60s and 70s, and his think pieces appeared mainstream media as well. He even wrote a novel entitled The Final Solution, which is apparently an underground sci-fi classic. The other notable people he conducted interviews for Playboy were people like G. Gordon Liddy, Stanley Kubrick, Ralph Nader, and Albert Speer, just to name a few. He conducted his last interview for Playboy in 1983 with writer Stephen King. Yet nothing exists out there about him. How is this possible? Some of the most obscure people from the same area have at least have a Wikipedia page, even if it's only one sentence. Not this dude. I wouldn't think much of it, but Eric Norden seems like a major player on the scene back then. And the weird feeling I get about Mark Lane possibly being a limited hangout, not just because of his U.S. Army intelligence ties or the pliers on his nuts, really has me thinking it's important to find out who this Eric Norden guy was. You guys, I guess me in particular, have had Adam Gorightly on your show before. Mr. Gorightly knew Robert Anton Wilson, and both of them knew Kerry Thornley. I know Wilson has passed away, but perhaps Adam, with all his connections, would be up to the task in helping to find out who Eric Norden was. And while I'm at it, is Adam Gorightly an alias for someone else? No, sir, that's his name.
That's his name.
The JFK assassination is confusing enough. It doesn't need any help, but all these aliases and code names and pseudonyms really keep a brother up at night. Thanks again, guys. Gary. Oh, P.S. I even went through the trouble of ordering every single Playboy issue that featured an interview conducted by Norden.
He said, I even went to the trouble of ordering every Playboy issue that contained an interview.
Yes, and a massive bush. Like I said, some of the off-ramps you can explore investigating the JFK assassination are very worthwhile. So I got a few pictures of what Norden looks like, but no real vital info. I did see someone claim that Norden was the pen name for Eric Peltier, but no chance that's him. Hope you guys can help. I'm only 2 years or so into the hole, and I know you both have been digging a lot longer than that. Gary.
I have no info on Eric. Never heard of him. So can't help you.
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard of the prolific Playboy interviews of Mark Lane and of course Jim Garrison in Playboy magazine, but didn't really pay much attention to who wrote them. But I guess the Eric Norden guy.
I don't guess I've ever read the byline. On those. It's been a while since I've read either one. Actually, years.
Yeah, it's very interesting stuff, and I can try to reach out to Adam and see what he's got on this Eric Norden dude, and we'll keep you posted if I hear anything back, Gary.
There you go.
Our next email is from Gary Miller again. Sorry, forgot to add that Norden also did an interview with Minuteman founder Robert Depew. Gary. So there's another one.
There's that.
Our next email is from Gary Miller again. Sorry.
What the fuck,
one last
Gary?
thing, I promise. I know. Robert Anton Wilson answered the mailbag and did editing for Playboy in the 60s. That's where I came up with the Gorightly Wilson Norden connection, if that helps. Thanks. Bye. Love, Gary. Okay.
Is
so
that
there
it?
you go. That's the last one from Gary. Well, there is another one from Gary, actually. And it says, do not read this email on air. This is just for you guys. So.
Well, we kind of got to read it on fucking air, don't we?
Oh.
No, let's not. Let's not. You can read it to me after we sign off.
Yes. We can.
I really kind of want to read it on the air.
Keep that one under a hat.
Yeah, I really kind of want to, but I haven't read it either. So, there's that. Moving on.
Next up, we have an email from Albert Herring. Okay. And he sends us a link to a YouTube video entitled Why Oliver Stone and JFK Revisited Are Full of Shit on YouTube.
I don't care to watch that. Oh my God. No, thanks. See ya, Albert.
Jim DiEugenio would pop a cork.
I know. And I actually liked JFK Revisited, so,
I do too.
I tried to make that clear. Apparently I didn't.
Yeah, there are some screwy facts in there, and I'm sure people have their opinions, like we said. So, and there's the extreme right opinion about his documentary. So there you go. If you're interested, search it out on YouTube. All right.
Come on, Albert.
Next.
Get the hell out of here with that.
Next up.
Yes, sir.
An email from Svetlana Bendova Herzegovina.
We've heard from This Svetlana, what would you call her? Sveti?
Svetlana Bendova Herzegovina.
Sweaty goes in you. Sweaty for short. Yeah, Sweaty goes in you.
Hello, boys. I'm reading in Jim Marr's book about Lee when he arrived in theater. Marr says that according to Butch Burroughs, the assistant manager who was taking tickets and selling concessions, Lee arrived between 1 and 1:07 p.m. This was when previews were showing. Mars also says Lee entered theater seating area and sat down next to someone. There were only about 20 people seated for the show in the theater. It seats 670, so they were very spread out. Lee then gets up and goes over to someone else and sits down right next to them. One of them was a pregnant lady. Finally, Lee goes to back and sits down. What do we know about these people? Were they ever interviewed by police? Were they ever asked to pick Lee out of a lineup? Did any of them testify before the Warrant Commission? I can find nothing anywhere about them. Yet any one of them could have alibied Lee for the Tippit murder 8 blocks away at approximately 1:12. I don't know about that time, but okay. It seems very odd that none of them would have recognized Lee when he sat right next to them with the lights on. And very odd that none of them came forward to offer information to the police. Of course, perhaps some of them did, and their statements were promptly placed in the circular file.
Well, they talked to a couple of people in the theater, didn't they? The Warrant Commission?
They did.
Yeah, I thought so.
They did. One of them was George Applin.
Yep.
He's the main one. Now, I've looked into this in the past, and of course, the Dallas police detained everyone that was in the theater and took down their names, and I'm sure interviewed or talked to most, if not all of them. Now, this list of theater attendees was conveniently lost or never did turn up, or, one of those type of things.
Conveniently lost before they could get around to interviewing everybody, obviously.
So we don't have a list of names of everybody that was in the theater. But there's George Applin for sure, and I believe I've seen interviews with a couple of others, including one person that Lee had sat down next to. And these a lot of those were done by independent researchers, who have since tried to follow up and run down leads, and who knows how accurate these eyewitness interviews are, or whether they're the kind of people that like to exaggerate things or not to make themselves more important to the story, like so many others that we know attached to this thing. But it is interesting stuff, for sure, because we know
very interesting.
He was jumping around, sitting next to different people, and he did have in his possession 2 ripped halves of a dollar bill. That is an old spycraft trick to match up to somebody else that has the other half, and then you know that you are talking to the right person. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's I'm pretty sure, like we mentioned earlier in the show, that this was Oswald was supposed to go to this theater to meet somebody, and he didn't know who. Hence his weird and erratic behavior of sitting next to several people and moving around. That's for sure. So I believe that was always in the plans. And likely he was not supposed to walk out of that theater. Maybe they thought that there would be, less people in the theater than 20 at the time, 20 witnesses to murdering, somebody in custody or something like that. Or maybe they were hoping as soon as they busted in the theater that Oswald was going to reach up and start shooting, and they would be able to shoot back and kill him on the spot. But in fact, that didn't happen. He just sat there and waited till they came up and grabbed him, and they couldn't really murder him at that point. I mean, who knows? But yeah, all very, very good questions, Svetlana.
Great email. And I agree with you 100%, dude.
This email is from Dick Mayo.
Of course it is.
Hey, Judy Bangers. Yeah. He calls us Judy Bangers, Doug. Can you believe that?
Go fuck yourself, Dick.
Yes. We all know this story that Oswald supposedly sat on his porch dry firing his Carcano to practice. Say he didn't do that. What if instead he sat around on a Sunday after the game talking about nothing in particular with his friends and fellow conspirators while taking practice pot shots at an aggressive and unpleasant FBI man? Could that have been called shooting debris? Best, Dick Mayo.
Anyway. Again, at our next production meeting, I'm gonna bring up screening emails prior to the show.
Where is a soundbite when you need it, Doug?
Of which one? I got a ton of them.
Well, something appropriate for that email.
Something appropriate for that email?
Yes.
Best dumb thing ever.
How about that one?
That'll work.
That'll work. Yes. I was shocked.
I believe eggs are an ingredient in mayonnaise, and it seems that Dick Mayo has egg on his face.
Yes. Much egg. Because you know what? I mean, let's face it. That was not clever.
Really not clever at all.
Well, good try.
Really not clever at all. Really.
Good try, Dick.
Good try.
Let's do better next time.
Really not clever at all.
Really not clever at all.
And that, Doug, is the bottom of the mailbag.
That is
Nothing left in here but dust.
Bottom of the proverbial barrel and
a few pubes.
In more ways than one. Yes, we had Dick Mayo and we had poofy bushes and shit. We had all kinds of craziness in the email section this month.
Dick Mayo to DiEugenio.
Well, look, back to that. Look, I'm just saying, come on the show. Don't troll us. Jesus, That's what I think. So, Rob, what a great show we put together, huh? What an awesome show it was. Fun.
Yes. And I would also add, I'd put our stats out there next to anybody's. And again, folks, authors, researchers, if you got something, reach out.
Say
We'd be more
something.
than happy to talk to you.
If you got something, say something. That's all you got to do is tell somebody. That's it.
That's right.
That's it.
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. It's going to be okay.
That's right.
We are fair. We are fair because 3 points of criticism coupled with 7 points of support and good tidings does not a smear make, ladies and gentlemen. No. And on that note, Rob, since I'm going to close this out, sir, would you, sir, like to start and tell everybody where they can see your stuff?
Yes, thank you, Doug. If you enjoy this show, you're going to love the Lone Gunman podcast. You can listen to it where you're listening to this show. Just search it out and download every fucking episode on there. There's almost 200 by now. You'll have so much time to listen while you're cleaning like Caroline, or whether you're walking your dog, or whether you're trying to go to sleep at night, or whether you're driving in the car on the way to work. You'll dig it. So check it out anywhere you can find this show. You can find the Lone Gunman podcast. You can follow along on Twitter at the Lone Gunman 7. On the Facebook, search for the Lone Gunman podcast to find the page. And lastly, if you're going to listen on YouTube and not make me any money, then the least you can do, you sons of bitches, is subscribe to the Lone Gunman podcast channel. That would be greatly appreciated from me, Bob. Doug.
From Bob. And guys, excuse me, you can get yet another dose of JFK assassination research and study by downloading and listening to me on the Dallas Action Podcast, presented by Wall Street Window. It is in deep on the people, places, things, events, and ideas related to the conspiracy that murdered President John F. Kennedy everywhere you find quality podcasts like Quick Hits, another fine Drop D podcast production. So, for Rob Clark, this is Doug Campbell saying tune in again next time when, after hearing an episode of this very podcast, we'll hear Jim DiEugenio say,
I expected it to be us, and it was. I hate them. They a nasty group.
We are out.
Peace.